My name is Amoga, co-founder and CEO of Carbon Origins. We're a robotics and VR company on a mission to make robots commonplace. So we're a group of scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. We have landed robots on Mars, we've launched suborbital rockets, we've deployed satellite constellations, developed VR technologies for Disney. We're very passionate about deep tech, and we see robotics as the future of front-end labor. And our goal is to incubate that in a location, in a place where it can get the most TLC. We originally started the company in California, but we moved to Minnesota a few months ago. Really affordable to build robots in the United States here in Minnesota. There are a lot of contract manufacturers here with the right expertise. There are other companies building robots here. It is going to be the hotbed for robot manufacturing. The reason is, if you can build Skippies, our robots, to work in the Minnesota weather and geography, they can work anywhere.
Now, when you hire someone with a disability, you've immediately led by example. You've said you trust a new perspective, that you're confident in that person, in yourself, and your team. Now, I work with a theater company, and we have signs on the wall that say, "Work your quirk," and radical inclusion. They emphasize that what makes us different gives us strength, a new perspective, a creative edge. In Cajun cooking, there's an ingredient called the lagniappe, and it's that little something something that keeps you coming back. Hire somebody with a disability. It's the lagniappe thing to do.
So, you've decided to start your own business. You have the resources to sell or the services your new customers need. So what's next? Here's a simple checklist to help you get started. First, choose your business structure. Do you want a sole proprietorship, partnership, limited liability company, or corporation? Each form has tax and financial consequences. Next, check to make sure the name you want to use for your business is available. You can do this by checking with the Minnesota Secretary of State office. If you want to be a sole proprietor, all you have to do is register the business name with the Secretary of State office. Or if your business is going to be an LLC or a corporation, when you file the business structure registration with the Secretary of State's office, that registration also includes the business name. After that, you may need to obtain federal and state tax identification numbers from the Internal Revenue Service and the Minnesota Department of Revenue. Note that some businesses won't need to take this step. Need is determined by the number of business owners, if the business will have employees, and if the business makes taxable sales or provides taxable services. Next, obtain any necessary licenses and permits from state and local government. Then you will need to buy or rent space for the business and set up phone and internet service. You also want to start a banking and credit relationship with a bank or other financial institution. And don't forget to write a business plan with benchmarks to guide you through business growth. We can help you.
And remember, if you need help in any of these steps, please reach out to us here at the Small Business Assistance Office. We have staff available to answer your questions.
My name is John Hauk. I am president of LightRun Incorporated. LightRun manufactures and sells a specialized unweighting tool for survivors of stroke, traumatic brain injury, and other injuries. I started out my career working for a company called Cardiac Pacemakers, then later on St. Jude Medical, along with a couple of startups in between. So I came out of the cardiac world, and Minnesota has been a great place for a medical device career. Our product has been sold and is currently being used in Hennepin County Medical Center, the VA Hospital in Minneapolis, North Memorial Hospital, and we're soon going to be delivering a system to Courage Kenny. So we are getting local traction in spite of the pandemic, and our goal is to go nationwide in 2022 and beyond.
Well, I met Andrew in 2010. He was a recent graduate from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So he already had his education before he came to us. And he was looking for work as an architect.
And I applied for over 200 jobs all over the U.S. I applied for jobs in Hawaii, New York, Florida and didn't get any sort of response. And after I'd applied for all of those different jobs, I realized that the job market right now is really low and that I was facing discrimination, as were a lot of people with disabilities.
So he's deaf and the world is hearing, and so of course the biggest barrier for him was communication. He worked with MCIL on job interviewing skills, and he did a very nice job talking about his experience and his work qualifications, but he did struggle a little bit with the accommodation issue, and so we worked a little bit more on that.
It was my good fortune to meet Andrew back in 2007, 2008. Andrew was someone who was deaf and he had graduated from architectural school. Really my charge was, how can I help Andrew network, take smaller steps given what the economy was.
He really advocated in my job search. He wants people to get out there. He connected me with people in the field because that's what I needed. He reached out to MnDOT, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, in the Affirmative Action Office. He contacted Lynette Geschwind. She was the head of the Affirmative Action Office at MnDOT. And she was able to set up a contract job for me to inspect airport terminals. It was a fascinating job, but again, it was contract work. And they actually didn't seem to see me as a person with disabilities. Based on my resume, they said via email that they were just really impressed with my experience, and they wanted to give me a chance.
When we launched Andrew, we were not focused on his disability. We helped him develop the skills to market himself as an architect. No one with a disability gets a job because of their disability. It's all about skills, and Andrew's a perfect example of someone that took what we helped him learn and was able to independently get a job in the private sector.
Do you run a small business in Minnesota? Are you trying to expand your operations? Or need help adjusting to changes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic? Then contact your local Small Business Development Center.
We'd like you to know that whether you're starting a brand new business, growing an existing one, or if your business needs help because of the COVID pandemic, the SBDC can provide that help, and it won't cost you a penny.
These are hard times, but if you need help with your business, Small Business Development Centers have real professionals standing by, ready to help you develop your business plan, do marketing and research, set up your accounting, gain access to capital, and much more. And they do it all for free. So contact us today at mnsbdc.com.
In Minnesota, we're training our workforce for the next chapter of the global economy.
Can't wait to get started on this project.
It's great hands-on practice.
I think our students will love it.
I'll bring this to the robotics lab.
Our education and business climate are among the best in the nation. And they work together to grow creative, high-skilled talent.
Can we make it this machine? The possibilities are almost endless.
We're a state that works hard, boasting one of the highest participation rates in America's workforce.
Awesome, man. This looks great. We can really do anything here.
Great things are happening in Minnesota, and we can help you thrive.
Final touch, man. Checkmate.
Join us.
Hi, my name is Amoga, co-founder and CEO of Carbon Origins. We're a robotics and VR company on a mission to make robots commonplace. So we're a group of scientists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. We have landed robots on Mars, we've launched suborbital rockets, we've deployed satellite constellations, developed VR technologies for Disney. We're very passionate about deep tech, and we see robotics as the future of front-end labor. And our goal is to incubate that in a location, in a place where it can get the most TLC. We originally started the company in California, but we moved to Minnesota a few months ago. Really affordable to build robots in the United States here in Minnesota. There are a lot of contract manufacturers here with the right expertise. There are other companies building robots here. It is going to be the hotbed for robot manufacturing. The reason is, if you can build Skippies, our robots, to work in the Minnesota weather and geography, they can work anywhere.
Now, when you hire someone with a disability, you've immediately led by example. You've said you trust a new perspective, that you're confident in that person, in yourself, and your team. Now, I work with a theater company, and we have signs on the wall that say, "Work your quirk," and radical inclusion. They emphasize that what makes us different gives us strength, a new perspective, a creative edge. In Cajun cooking, there's an ingredient called the lagniappe, and it's that little something something that keeps you coming back. Hire somebody with a disability. It's the lagniappe thing to do.
So, you've decided to start your own business. You have the resources to sell, or the services you're
Hello, everybody, and welcome to August. I'm Jessica Miller, and I'm the interim workforce strategy director. And we are joining you, well, Della and I are joining you today from beautiful Duluth, Minnesota. And I'm telling you, if you've never been, make it to your bucket list. Ironically, I'm in Duluth for the Minnesota Association of Workforce Boards annual summer meeting, where we gather and learn together and strategize together and share all of our best practices of connecting employers to talent across the state of Minnesota. This is the group of people that know how to gather the village to make the magic happen, I'm telling you. And our topic today is centered around the power of partnerships and how you, as employers, can tap into the system that's designed to serve you, job seekers, and other partner organizations to get things done. We really have a fantastic lineup for you today, and I'm excited myself to learn about a new organization to me. I invite you that as we get started to also take a second to type into chat, how are you connected to the workforce system? Where's your place in this process? We want to know from you. I would also like to remind you that this session today is recorded, obviously going live on our social media channels. You'll be able to go back through and watch pieces and parts again if you want to do that. And we'll also upload any of the resources today to the website for you as well. We will go until noon, and then we will invite you to hang on with us for the unplugged portion of our event, where you can turn on your camera and unmute and join us in a conversation with our panelists and your other workforce strategy consultant team for an additional 30 minutes. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to your Southeast Workforce Strategy Consultant, Jessica O'Brien.
Yes, hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Jessica O'Brien, and I am the Workforce Strategy Consultant in Southeast Minnesota. And I am really excited to be hosting this session today on creative workforce partnerships and highlighting how strengths and expertise and resources can be leveraged together to create workforce solutions. And so I want to start us off by highlighting this workforce development wheel. And so this really, this image really shows us that it takes many partners to collaborate to fill our workforce needs. And so we see that when employers are accessing and utilizing their workforce partners, that they are having more success because they are not doing this all alone. And so we will hear a little bit about some of those partnerships just in a moment. So I did want to just point out that there are many workforce partners here for employers to tap into and help further your efforts. We'll go to the next slide. So a quick review of today's agenda. We're excited to highlight 3 unique partnerships. We will be taking audience questions throughout the presentation, so please use the chat to share your ideas and questions. We will also, at the end, provide some links to resources, and then at noon, we will start our unplugged Q&A session with our panelists, and so I invite you all to stay on for that as well. Next slide. So I want to introduce you to our panelists today who represent 3 different workforce partnerships. So first, we have a refugee workforce partnership with Ahmed Jafar Mohamud. He goes by Jafar. Jafar is the team coordinator and employment counselor for the Minnesota Council of Churches Mankato Refugee Services Office. He is also an active community leader and serves as an imam or faith leader in the local Muslim community at an area mosque. And partnering with Jafar is Alan Rodriguez, who is the account recruiting manager with the industrial division at Aerotech in Mankato. Next slide. Next, we have a justice-involved workforce partnership with Courtney Dugstad, who is the executive director of Next Chapter Ministries in Rochester. And their work in Olmsted County for over 20 years has focused on restoring people impacted by the cycle of incarceration with holistic care. Partnering with Courtney is Hosea Hargret, who is the owner of H2 Real Estate Solutions in Rochester, and they provide a range of property management services, including indoor and outdoor. And then next slide, lastly, we have a youth workforce partnership that has been together for a number of years and has evolved into a more formalized partnership, which we will hear more about later. And so joining us today is Brad Meyer, president of the Owatonna Area Chamber of Commerce and Tourism, representing 530 businesses in the Owatonna area. And partnering with Brad is Mike Postma, who is the Rice and Steele County Area Manager for Workforce Development, Inc., a private nonprofit agency that serves job seekers and employers throughout Southeast Minnesota. So we're going to kick things off by hearing from each workforce partnership. First, we'll have each partner share a couple slides to introduce themselves, and then we'll hear from them together about what makes their partnership work. So we'll start off with our Refugee Workforce Partnership, and we'll start with introductions from Jaffer from MCC Mankato Refugee Services, and then we'll hear from Alan with Aerotech. So welcome, Jaffer, and please share a little bit about your organization.
Good morning. It's not almost morning now, yes. All the guests in here. I am honored to be in here anyway. MCC Mankato. This is the local office, but we have our main office, which is in Minneapolis. It is a nonprofit 501c3 statewide organization. Our mission is manifesting unity and building the common ground. Mostly the population we serve is refugees and asylees. Our Mankato office, it is opened the first time 2012. And the next September, it's going to be our 10th anniversary of operation. We have 4 staffs in the office, Mankato, but mighty, although the few staffs in numbers. The service we provide for the population we serve mainly is community navigator, which is mainly covers the social services, the basic needs, whether it is housing and any other social service the clients have eligible with. We work with immigration adjustment if they need green cards or maybe citizenship, naturalization, or maybe green cards or travel documents and so on. As soon as the clients came to our area, we just make connection with health partners in the area, which is one of the most challenges for the newcomers when it comes to how to just connect to the health. We also do employment and serve the population we serve, connect to the employers and to join the workforce. Those are the areas we serve and help with the clients, the population we serve. And that's what we do partially, MCC do in Mankato area.
Thank you, Jaffer. So Alan, let's hear from you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So I work with Aerotech here in Mankato. Been with the company just over 5 years. A little bit about Aerotech. So we are a privately owned staffing agency. We are throughout the United States. We're not just in Mankato or just in Minnesota. We are nationally. We are the largest privately owned staffing agency in the U.S. Some of the customers and kind of positions that we work with. So we do a lot of manufacturing staffing. We work with companies, help them hire, whether from entry-level production packagers all the way up to like plant managers and everything in between. So we work with a lot of entry-level candidates. We work with a lot of skilled candidates to kind of help those companies fill the positions that they needed filled. Kind of how our process works. So we partner with obviously manufacturing companies throughout the local area. And then we source candidates over to their HR team to basically determine best fits for our candidates. We do phone screenings, interviews, reference checks, interview preps, resume building with all of our candidates. And then if they are a fit for the job that we sent them for, We proceed with sometimes drug tests, background checks, onboarding. So we do all of that for those companies. Once that, we set them up to start. They start with the company, and then we usually do like weekly or monthly check-ins with our employees just to make sure work's going good, make sure that the job that we place them in is the right fit for them. And then we're basically doing those touch point calls with them, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly throughout the length of their assignment. Yeah, looking forward to the rest of the call.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alan. So thank you both for those introductions. So now we'd like to just take a moment and hear a little bit from both of you about what makes this partnership work. So Alan, let's start with you. Why is MCC Refugee Services a good partner for Aerotech?
Yeah. So I think I partnered with Ahmed Jaffer, like 4.5 years ago, probably. Just reached out to him, kind of built a friendship, a connection with him. So how they help us is obviously the way the world and the employment kind of searches have been for the past few years for companies finding employees. I've partnered with Jaffer over at the Minnesota Council of Churches to basically help drive these, not so much entry-level candidates, but a lot of the candidates that he works with and we work with, English might not be their first language. And I am very bad at bilingual and learning other languages. So Jaffer's helped me with some of the translation, the onboarding for some of these individuals to help speed up that process and just make it more comfortable for those job seekers that might not speak English as their first language. Like I always just imagine it like me going overseas or going to a foreign country that I've never been to and just not speaking the language, and like that's scary enough. Imagine like going out and trying to find a job or a career. Like it's a lot of pressure on an individual and for them and for their family. So how he's helped me out dramatically is just helping with that translation piece, building that relationship, building that trust from employee to myself, employee to Aerotech, an employee to the company that we serve as well too. So he's helped out with that a lot. Just sourcing candidates, like it's almost like a win-win scenario. Like his job is to help these individuals find work once they get over here, and it's my job to help individuals find work. So the partnership almost is like too good to be true. It just works really well. But yeah, we've partnered over the last 4 years, done a really good job, and I thank him every day for all the help that he's done with us.
Thank you, Alan. Jaffer, how about you? Why is Aerotech a good partner for your organization and the people that you work with?
Thank you for asking that. We have a couple of agencies in the area. I mean, the reason why Aerotech became one of the best partner in terms of recruiting the population we serve is just a lot of support regarding the population we serve when it comes to entry-level jobs, mainly. And when they apply, the process of hiring process is very fast. What makes fast is communication. They facilitate. Especially Alan directly facilitates the way of communication when it comes to that the period the process goes on. When it comes to drug test, for example, sending someone, applying it, filling application, boarding, and having interviews, all those kind of things, we collaborate together, and time-wise, it is very fast. Within a day or 2 or 3 days, the client who need to get a job the soonest way he can, Aerotech, especially Alan, work out to make it possible. So if, for example, they send to drug test, there's a language barrier. I kick in there and just go there. He send the paperwork for the drug test, and I just reach out the client. We went together there. I just attend with them at the drug test and complete that process. Through that, Aerotech became one of the best, and during those 4 years and a half, around about 100 applicants of the population I serve especially get employed there. Most of them, they get good positions at the end of up to now, within 4 years, and they just elevated and get the career ladder opportunity through the company they get employed with. If something comes up, immediately we kick in together and just communication, three-way communication from directly to Aerotech, then to the employer. We resolve whatever comes with the client or with the employer regarding the placement they get it. So overall, if I summarize it, what I mean, set up our foundation of partnership is the way the job starts with the client, the way it starts, the time it takes, as well as facilitation in terms of communication, and just eliminating or reducing, if I use another word, most of the barriers as much as we can, so that the people can get into the workforce. That is what makes our partnership strong, and that's how we started, and still we're working together through that way.
Yeah, that is awesome. And, it sounds like you both have been able to really come together and utilize your different interests and strengths to remove barriers. You talked about streamlining hiring processes and a quick turnaround time. And so it sounds like things are working really well for both of you. Thank you both for sharing. We'll go to the next slide, this is the correct slide, actually, talking about our justice-involved workforce partnership. And we will start with Hosea from H2 Real Estate Solutions, and then we're going to hear from Courtney with Next Chapter and hear their introductions. So I will hand things over to Hosea.
Hi, good morning. My name is Hosea Hargret. I'm the owner and operator for H2 Real Estate Solutions. Here, we're based in Rochester, Minnesota. We do a number of real estate related things like lawn care, landscaping, snow removal, property maintenance, and also run a real estate team out of Keller Williams, where we buy, sell, and help clients buy, sell real estate. But on the services side, the H2 Real Estate Solutions, we have at any given time a number of projects that's going, whether it's maintenance, construction, summer, winter, all times of the year. So that's the crux of my business, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Hosea. Now we will hear from Courtney.
Good morning. So I am the Executive Director here at Next Chapter Ministries. We are also located in Rochester, Minnesota, and serve the Olmsted County area. As you can see in the picture that just came up, those are our homes. We have 5 residential homes that provide wraparound holistic services for men and women and children coming out of incarceration. Of course, children not coming out of incarceration, but we do serve multi-generations at a time. So one of our homes is a family home for parents that are coming out of incarceration and want to be restored to their relationships with their children. Some unique aspects of Next Chapter. So as Jessica mentioned, we've been around for about 20 years in this community. We have very strong community relationships and partnerships to help provide this holistic care. We are a community-based organization, and we do not have mandated participation. What that means is that folks that are applying to come to Next Chapter actually have a desire for change. So they have, quote unquote, done their time and have still asked to come and to Next Chapter to receive up to 2 years of reentry support and discipleship through housing. We focus on restorative practices. So our mission is restoration to God, family, and community. So everything we do works in those 3 areas. And then we also have a second step reentry where we work on pathways to home ownership with folks who have graduated our first step reentry. Okay, so this kind of slips into why Hosea is a great partner as well. So I'll kind of like move into that space too. A lot of it is because he can check off some of this list. So something I like to talk about is just different ways that employers in our community can partner best with justice-involved populations. So first is, as I mentioned before, we are a community-based reentry organization, which means we do help businesses with overcoming some of those challenges to sustainable employment with their employees. So by partnering with local community-based organizations, you're able to sort of overcome some of those barriers with housing and even sober living and sometimes transportation. Next is evaluating application process and hiring processes. So one of the reasons why in that first part, working with Hosea is really phenomenal is because we do, much like the partnership we just heard from, we do communicate very well and work through person-centered care. So what is each person and employee that Hosea has that lives at Next Chapter, what do they need and how can we work together to provide person-centered care and make sure those barriers are being overcome. Evaluating application process and hiring processes, that really looks like one, determining if you have some educational barriers to hiring that might not be necessary. For instance, does it actually matter if your applicants have a GED or high school diploma, or do you think that it matters? Because sometimes that can be a barrier. Over 40% of folks that are incarcerated in Minnesota do not have a GED or a high school diploma. And so that might be a barrier to achieving employment with your business if that is a qualification, and just checking to see if that's actually a necessary qualification. And then also making sure HR knows how to read a criminal report. Sometimes folks are disqualified for jobs because they have a charge on their record versus a conviction. Also, different crimes, making sure that HR knows the difference between a burglary and a theft. They're not in the same category. So just making sure your HR is knowledgeable in those areas. A lot of that is certainly helpful if you're partnering with reentry organizations upon your hiring process. Being flexible with parole and probation requirements. Sometimes that means for 1 hour every month, allowing your employee to go to a parole or probation meeting, which is oftentimes in the middle of the day. Hosea is phenomenal with this, just making sure that he's being able to be flexible. Again, helpful for you as a business or the hiring person because one, it ensures sobriety. Most oftentimes going to parole or probation meetings also means getting a UA. And then also if they are compliant with parole and probation, it just gives you a more sustainable employee as well. Next is being willing to overcome technology and transportation barriers. A lot of folks that are coming back from incarceration might have some of those barriers, and just making sure that if we want a sustainable employee that we're kind of looking at what that might look like. Hosea does a phenomenal job making sure he provides transportation for our guys that are just coming out and still have not reestablished their license yet. Another option is to provide transportation for a fee, but still allows overcoming that barrier. And then creating a healthy work environment and culture. So your culture is already established before somebody is hired into your business. So would you know how to describe the work culture that you have? Making sure that livable wages is an option and that you're providing a sober environment for those coming out that might have, that might be in recovery. So talking about moving sort of forward into what makes this partnership work, some of the reasons that I just stated are all things that Hosea provides. He helps with flexible schedules. Another thing he does is help teach life skills and is a mentor to a lot of the folks that come out of Next Chapter because of our partnership. He provides a healthy and sober work environment that I know when I send guys to Hosea, I know that they're going to be positively influenced. He also cultivates a strength-based leadership culture. Something about brain development. So your amygdala, which is your survival brain, actually communicates with other amygdalas. And those that Hosea puts in leadership positions over our justice-involved population are equipped. They lead through strengths and skills and are teachers more than dictators. And that really helps create that healthy environment. And then he also provides livable wages. if we're not providing livable wages, then we're putting people into a pretty difficult position to have to make some really hard decisions if they can't survive on one paycheck. And then, like I mentioned, he also helps provide transportation when we have challenges with guys just working towards getting their license.
Thank you, Courtney. And so Hosea, Courtney had a lot of really good examples of how the partnership works for her. Do you have anything you'd like to share about why Next Chapter is a good partner for your business?
Absolutely. So a couple of things come to mind. The guys I've worked with at Next Chapter, they've always had a serious or a strong eagerness in order to do a good job. So they they go above and beyond what I would expect in order to do a good job. For me, it's a way of giving back to the community, particularly a population that's overlooked and, well, discriminated against, really. And then for the individual, the guys that's working for me, get to see a variety of things and get experience in things that may pique their interest and may become a new passion for them. And I think that the most important thing for me is to show individuals, people, what's possible. We're all over town, all kinds of different tasks to be done. And it really, I think, shows guys what they can do, because the things that I'm doing, the business that I have, is not rocket science. And I think they probably see that by working alongside of me, that this is not rocket science. And if he can do it, I certainly can do it. So that's what I think works well for both me, the individual, and Next Chapter.
Yeah, thank you, Hosea. You know, it sounds like both of you have really found a place where you can collaborate based on your shared values and your commitment to removing barriers as well. So really appreciate that. We'll go to the next slide. And now we are going to hear from our youth workforce partnership that has evolved into the creation of a formal program called Steel Co-works, which takes place in Steele County. I will have Brad from the Chamber start us off with some introductions, and then we'll hear from Mike with Workforce Development, Inc. And then we will learn a little bit more about how all of their partners came together to launch the Steel Co-works program. So Brad, I will hand things over to you.
Thanks, Jessica, and good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. So I'll keep my intro fairly short, but the Chamber, as many of you probably know, we're a business organization, and we represent about 530 organizations here in the Owatonna area. We're dedicated to them, but we're obviously pretty invested in how this community grows and what can happen here. So as we talk with our members, 90 to 95% of them workforce challenges are right at the top of the list. We have an unemployment rate of 1.6% here in Steele County and 2,600 job openings, and I'm sure that's similar in a lot of your areas. So the things we work on here are all around growth. So restore the cores around our downtown and revitalization of that. We're a partner in economic development here and drawing new business and expanding existing. Tourism's under our umbrella. That's our first date with a new person that's going to move to your community typically. And then our membership is the core, obviously, the business community here that supports what we do and the initiatives that we do. And obviously attracting and retaining talents at the top of the list. And we'll talk more about that through the Steel Co-works program. So thanks again for letting me be part of this today.
And do you, Brad, do you want to wait till the end to talk about Steel Co Works here? Or did you have anything you'd like to say in particular right now?
Sure. I mean, I know we're going to dig into it, but so Steel Co Works is the partnership essentially. So that's our collaboration with Workforce Development Incorporated and Mike and the United Way of Steele County and our business community and our school districts in Steele County. And it's all geared around youth, of course, and primarily students in high school, but it also is students that have graduated high school as well. And in many ways started around the concept that 25% of our graduates historically graduate high school without a plan. And so how do we gear that around the opportunities that we have in the area?
Yeah, thank you, Brad. We'll go to the next slide and hear from Mike.
Good morning, everyone. As mentioned, I'm Mike Postman. I worked for Workforce Development Incorporated. We are we manage the career force locations for the state in southeast Minnesota. And we are a nonprofit governed by a very large board, which is made of government leaders, a lot of private industry. Half our board is folks who are in private industry. And really, our mission is to develop and advance the workforce of Southeast Minnesota. And so we've got a couple of ways that we do that. We try and be a champion for workers. We really try and be a convening agent to bring partners together to solve workforce problems. And Steel Co Works is a really good example of what that looks like. And we are accountable to individuals, businesses, communities we serve. We have measurable things that we kind of keep an eye on so that we are, when we're doing the various programs where we have, whether it's dislocated worker, whether we have some youth services, whether we are working with our MFIT population, or just general folks looking for help, we try and make those connections and then prove that we are doing the work. On the next slide, you'll be able to see the area that we serve. We are sort of headquartered, if you will, in Olmsted County because Rochester is our largest city. I manage Rice and Steele County, and so we have offices of various sizes, whether they're full-blown career force offices or just little small workforce development offices in all of those counties except for Winona, which is why they're gray. They are their own little region.
All right, and then we'll go and transition to hearing about the Steel Co Works program.
Yeah, so I'm going to let Brad talk a little bit because he was there at the beginning about how the seed for Steel Co Works started and how that came about.
Okay, so I'll just give you a real quick on that. But so Steel Co Works, like I mentioned, a little bit about what it's meant to do, which is working with youth 16 to 24 in age. And when we sat down with the business community, I think it was about 5 years ago, and just said, all right, we know workforce is a challenge and an issue, but we've got so many resources, and in a lot of ways you can go down so many paths with workforce issues. You can focus on housing, you can focus on different populations, all those things. And what we decided to do with our partners is to focus on the students that we have here in our community in Steele County as a logical first step. And so that was the kind of point where everybody gelled around that idea, and let's bring on a person to do this. So we generated the concept of a workforce coordinator. You could see on this slide that Megan Horton is our current. Anisha Zak was our first one, so we're on our second workforce coordinator. And the whole thought process is that we would have somebody who's really working to make that direct connection between what the business community is looking for and what the students are looking for. And so the strength of this partnership is that we have participation on both sides of both pieces of the puzzle, right? So we've got businesses heavily engaged in providing opportunities to students, whether it's through a tour, a job shadow, an internship, or a work experience. And we've got the schools on board with saying, yeah, we want our students to have those opportunities, and we're going to allow somebody in. In fact, Megan offices right in the Owatonna High School. She's got a lot of offices around town. She can office in any of our any of our spots, but it makes sense to be there. And the businesses, mainly our largest, said, yeah, we'll fund it too. And so the chamber is a partner, but really the funding comes through our employers to us and then into this funnel, and which is a third funded by the chamber, aka the businesses, a third of it through the United Way of Steele County through a grant, and then WDI is the third partner, and also where Megan is employed officially. And I'm probably stepping on some of Mike's talking points, but that was the impetus. And as I mentioned before, it was around that 25% of students that graduate without a plan. And then the thought also is a lot of students go on to school and then it's not for them, and they come back to our community. And so can we be a resource there as well? And that's been part of this effort.
Go to the next
Great.
slide.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. That's a great explanation. Really, it's such a unique partnership because of the tri-braided funding streams, right? So we have the local businesses investing through the chamber. We have the United Way, which is dozens, if not hundreds, of individual investors who selects us each year to fund this through their grant system, and then workforce development. And what we try and bring to the table, besides the workforce expertise, is the ability to access some of the funding that is available to students who have barriers through traditional deed youth funding, if you will. And so you can see that we have, so Megan has the opportunity for students who have those eligible barriers to enroll them in, say, a work experience, where if the employer is willing to bring them on, we will fund 200 hours of an actual work experience for them. So the employer, and we carry them on our payroll. So the employer is providing the opportunity, but we're providing the funding for that. And so hopefully that's a job that the student loves, and then they graduate high school, can get hired on. We've had, actually, every year we do what we call signing day, which is modeled after when you see students kind of signing to commit to college to play sports. We have students who are committing to local businesses to work there upon graduation. I think we had a dozen students this year participate in signing day for at least 6 or 7 area employers, a lot of manufacturers, some healthcare, really a broad spectrum, insurance. And it's really cool to kind of celebrate the opportunities that this program has brought forth. If you want to flip to the next slide, it'll show some of the different things that we try and offer. So those work experiences that I talked about, so a lot of it is touring local businesses through the Made in Owatonna Day program, which we'll talk about in a second. Some of them are just internships for students who want to try and work. Federated is a major employer in the area who brings in multiple, I'd say a dozen so interns their last semester of high school. And a lot of those folks then end up getting hired upon completion. And it might be something as simple as a job shadow. If a student thinks that they want to be a mechanic, going and job shadowing a mechanic for an afternoon might hopefully reinforce that, but it might also have them realize, oh, this isn't what I thought it was, and I'm not sure this is for me. Better we help them figure that out with the day-long job shadow experience, and they go off to school, spend a bunch of money to develop a skill that they end up not wanting to do. So there's a lot of different things that this program does. The last one that I want to touch on is the next slide, which is those Made in Owatonna Days. And this is a partnership that really the school is the lead on in Owatonna, but it is a chance for students to explore some of the various sectors in Owatonna and actually tour the employers there. So it's offered 3 times throughout the school year. There's 6 different sectors that they focus on: healthcare, manufacturing, some of the major ones. And so every 2 years, one of those sectors, the students can leave school for the day, and they will actually tour those businesses to learn about all the things that are going on in Owatonna. And again, really trying to target that 25% of the students that statistically we know don't have a plan upon high school graduation. The longer they kind of sit around after graduation without a plan, generally the more likely they are to, not engage with the workforce right away. And we want them to be successful, and our businesses need them.
Thank you both so much. I think this is such a really wonderful example. The Steel Co Works collaboration of how, a community partnership effort can be formed where you have multiple partners coming together, sharing their resources so that students in the community know what opportunities are available to them in their backyard. So that is a really great model. Thank you both for sharing. We're going to go ahead and transition now to the panel discussion. So we're going to learn a little bit more from everyone about some of the things that have been shared. So the first question that will be open to all of our partnership groups is, what are some challenges that you have worked through together? And we will start with our justice involved partners, Courtney and Hosea, then we will go to Jaffer and Alan, and then Brad and Mike. So Courtney and Hosea, let's hear from you. What are some challenges that you have worked through together?
So I'll probably let Hosea answer this one, just because I think maybe one of the challenges that most people think of when it comes to the justice involved population, of course, right, is going back or relapsing or having an unsuccessful employment opportunity. I think a strength that Hosea has is that he's able to look at people as individuals, and understanding that one experience doesn't represent all experiences. And I think that's one of the hardest challenges to overcome. And choosing to look at somebody who's applied for a job as someone who wants to succeed versus somebody you're waiting to fail. Hosea, do you have any examples of a challenge?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. Me personally, I look at the guys as individuals. Normally, when I meet the guys and we kind of, start our conversation, normally the first question they ask is, so you want to know my background? And my reply is, no, your past is your past. What I want to know is what you want to do going forward. And that's where we start. And that's how I think that builds a level of trust that they're not thinking that I'm going to judge them based on what has happened in the past.
Right. Well, and I'm sure it goes a long way to build trust, which is a good foundation for relationships and success. So thank you. So next, let's hear from Jaffer and Alan. What are some of the challenges that you both have worked through together?
Let me start. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Alan.
Move forward. I was just gonna. Some of the, I guess, the challenges that we've kind of occurred is, a few times, like early on in our partnership, and a lot of the companies that we worked with, they weren't really aware of like the Muslim culture and like their prayer times and certain aspects of that. So we had some issues right away with, individuals not being comfortable for prayer times at work. And we've actually implemented a few clients that we work with. They've actually designated specific prayer rooms for individuals to go pray in, so they're not just praying out in the open. So that's been a success. And then I guess one of the other struggles we've kind of worked through is just with some pay issues and stuff like that with individuals, maybe not being trained in how to punch in and out properly and having issues with receiving their paycheck and the correct hours. So we've kind of worked through that process as well too. But yeah, I feel like we work pretty well, sorting those things out and whatnot. But yeah, why don't you chime in?
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing. I mean, I feel it was a challenge, but finally we resolved. There is a time, one of the clients, when we just start the process of application and just to complete it, Alan send me the paperwork of a drug test. The drug test, there is language barrier there. when the client get there, the person who take the sample, he want just directly to communicate with the applicant, not me when I get there. And the second challenge I face at that spot was some related to faith related. Some companies when they making like a drug test, the samples they take, sometimes they take urine, sometimes they take saliva, but this is a specific sample they should take, which is the hair. This is a female. When it comes to Islamic faith, the head should be covered, and no one can touch the hair of the woman. And now here's the someone who's saying, "I want to get part of your hair as a sample and take it to for drug test." Rejection. She refused to do so. That's the time I involved to find some solution, some way out. I mean, she needs the job, yes, but there is some ethically she cannot take it. How we resolved? I discussed after long discussion with the client, saying that okay, cover the major of your hair, but either it is a forehead part or maybe the end, they can shave and take some small number of samples so that it is allowed in terms of faith. Now I have to just like use the knowledge I have, the faith she believes, and what the challenge she is facing and how she can come over. So I explained. Finally, we successfully, she just completed the process. From that spot, the rest, it is out of, they use mouth of word, they reach it, they explain, then the ladies, or maybe the female who just want to take that kind of, drug test, it is easy now, and they already heard what we went through and how we resolved. From there things went smooth. So those kind of challenges always come up, and we always jump in and just together discuss and communicate and resolve with the client or maybe the employer self.
Yeah, and that's a really good example because it sounds like, Jaffer, that you are able to really bridge understanding and come up with a solution that is, respectful and, culturally responsive, and you're able to kind of work with people on both sides to come up with a solution in that situation. Thank you for sharing that. And so Brad and Mike, your organizations came together with multiple partners and a lot of other stakeholders. So what are some of the challenges that you have worked through together?
A unique one that we actually faced about a year ago, a little bit more. Some of you may laugh that the workforce guy also has workforce challenges. And so when I came on board as a manager, we had a wonderful workforce coordinator named Anisha Zak. And she did such a good job that somebody came along and poached her, offered her something that she couldn't refuse, and we wish her well. But we realized that a lot of the work that had been done was very Anisha centered. She was the face of the program. She was in all the marketing materials, and all the students kind of knew her. And so we hired a new great person, Megan, but we kind of had to step back and maybe refocus how we were doing some of the marketing and things to be more of a program specific thing. And even hiring that person, Brad and I did the interviews together because we are both partners. And even though she works for WDI, she goes to the chamber's office meetings to kind of find out what's going on. And so it very much is a collaboration. And so by doing, having those dual interviews together, we were kind of able to find somebody that we were both comfortable with. And so that was, I think, a really big success.
Yeah, and I think the other challenge is just, you've got 3 organizations with different missions. And so, but we know where we overlap, and we're able to we've been able to use our strengths. So I'm always talking about, well, how many students are working or are at employers, and how do we communicate that, or how many businesses are involved? And I'm always looking at some of those pieces. United Way is certainly very focused around how are we helping people get up in society and move forward with the challenges that they've got, and that's what we need as well. And then obviously Mike and the WDI team wants to get as much of the programs and the involvement as they can get. And so I think, for us, it's just talking through it. And luckily, we all get along pretty well, and we just kind of say, all right, what do we need and how do we get there? But for the person we hire, so Megan, it's kind of like, well, whose voice am I listening to? And so we meet with Megan monthly together, and we're all in the same room so that we're not, one person saying one thing, one saying another, and it's worked really well. So, but I think that's just been something we've had to work throughout the partnership.
Yeah. And so I know I see we're already closing out our time toward the end here. It went by really fast. But I did want to quickly ask each of our partnerships that are here to sort of share in, 30 seconds to a minute. What is one key takeaway that people listening today should have? What do you recommend? What advice do you have? So we also want to ask the audience who are listening in to share in the chat anything that you've learned about partnerships that you think would be important for people to know. So we will start with Jaffer and Alan, then we'll go to Brad and Mike, and then Courtney and Hosea can close it out. So what is one key takeaway that you would have for the audience? So Jaffer and Alan.
If I start first, one of the key takeaway I just want our listeners to take with them is the people, especially the people we serve, the population we serve, mostly they have language barrier. They may be bilingual, trilingual in some cases, but the language they're missing is just English. They come with good skills, quick learners, and most of those who join workforce just implemented. Just like be the highest when you look at it. So what I just want one thing to deliver, one message is when it is entry level jobs, employers especially, there is no necessary to have any barrier connected to language to be implemented. Instead, to be minimized as well if cannot eliminated in some cases. Because people have skills, they can start it, they can fit the position, only language-wise can block someone who may just be success in that position. So that is the only message I just want our listeners to take today from this session.
Thank you, Jaffer and Alan.
I was just say he just basically stole what I was gonna say, which is good. I was just gonna say, like, to add to that is just keep an open mind. Like I said at the beginning of the call too, like I always kind of imagine myself in their shoes. Like if I were to go to somewhere where I wasn't comfortable with, like it's scary enough, like uprooting your family and going to somewhere that you've never been before, yet alone starting a career search and a job search. Like just because they don't speak the language that you speak doesn't mean they're not qualified to work at your company or work at the job that you're doing. Like Jaffer said, some of them are very skillful in the trades that they know. Just because they can't speak the language doesn't mean they're not going to be successful at the job. We've kind of figured out too is 9 times out of 10, there's someone at your company or at the company that they're applying to or going to work at that might speak their language. Reach out, see if there's someone that can help translate. That's how we kind of built our partnership. And yeah, I think a lot of companies could really succeed and, diversify that way.
Thank you both. We'll move to Brad and Mike. One key takeaway.
Perfect. I'll go quick and Mike go right ahead after. I just, for us, success was choosing a path and doing it to the best of our ability. And so for us, that is having great engagement from businesses. It's a lot of work to bring a student in on a tour or a job shadow, or there's training and there's all these things that go with it. So good involvement there, which we've had really strong, about 100 businesses a year. But then also that the schools would allow us to participate, which they've done, and that the students would engage, and they've done that as well. And we've had over 250 to 300 students a year involved in some shape or form throughout this program, whether it's Made in Owatonna Days or directly with Megan or whatever the case may be. And so we feel good about that, and we want to just keep growing that piece. So, and the last thing I would say is just the people, for us, the students here, like we take for granted, they don't know what goes on in these businesses, and they don't know what their opportunity is. So we're trying to enlighten them, and a lot of times there's some great stuff right here that fits for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you, Brad. And Mike.
You know, Brad touched on a lot of great points. I think the one that comes to mind for me is, you all are in areas where I'm sure you have some great organizations doing great stuff, whether it's nonprofits, whether it's business groups, whether it's government groups or school groups. Sometimes we are all very guilty of being siloed. And so if there's a problem out there that is not being directly addressed, don't be afraid to take 2 or 3 different people and try and shake it up a little bit. You know, this model works because we looked at a problem and we brought in some partners that hadn't been working together in that way before. But just because we have, the career force, if you will, SWDI, the Chamber, and the United Way, doesn't mean that that's what this could look like in your area. In your area, you might pull one of those out and put in the local school as a person or a group. And so you don't be afraid to invite partners in the area that you might not realize should be your partner, but are doing good work, and talk about what that looks like.
That is great advice. Thank you both. Now we will hear from Hosea and then Courtney.
Courtney and I have agreed that she would go first.
Okay.
Okay.
Courtney.
Real quick, I just have 2 things, language and math. So language, I think it's easy to remember justice involved folks that you quote unquote took a chance on that didn't work out. But I suggest and encourage that we don't use that language because it kind of feeds this stigma that those coming out of incarceration are a liability and not an asset. And I believe that they are an asset. So I think of some of our folks who have had years of experience dealing illegal substances. They ran budgets, they worked in teams, they managed people, and they were creative in their business and marketing. And those are transferable skills. So starting to kind of re-look at the language that you're using. And then math. So I always like to point out, especially for our Minnesota folks, 1 out of 4 people in Minnesota has a criminal history, and 1 out of 6 households are impacted by the cycle of incarceration. That means justice-involved folks might be underrepresented in the workforce or at your company, but they are not underrepresented in the community population. So while I believe that people coming out of incarceration with a desire for life change are some of the absolute best candidates that you could hire, if you're just doing simple math, it means if you want a robust workforce, we have to consider opening up our candidate pool. And that might mean starting with you and your company and addressing some systemic policies and procedures that are within your organization or hiring practices or even your leadership culture that are barriers to successfully engaging justice-involved folks.
Thank you, Courtney. And Hosea, anything to add?
Absolutely. For all of the small business operators out there who doesn't have a robust HR department to be able to slice and dice all the different pieces that go into serving this population that we serve, I highly recommend you as an organization connect with another organization whereby you can build that trust to be able to cut the red tape in the onboarding process. I personally don't have time to interview candidates, but when Courtney calls me and says she has a candidate that needs a job, I take it at face value, and I don't have to go through all of the steps that a normal organization probably would have to do because I already have that relationship built.
Yes, thank you, Hosea, and thank you to everyone. I see we're a couple minutes over. I really want to say a huge thank you to all of our panelists for sharing how you all work together to create workforce solutions, both for businesses and also for job seekers. I think you have all helped show us what's possible when people can come together and leverage their expertise and resources and lift each other up and collaborate in really intentional and meaningful ways. So thank you all so much. I want to just let you know the recording of today's webinar and contact information for all of our panelists will be available on our careerforcemn.com Workforce Wednesday page. We know that there is still a lot to discuss, and so we hope that all of you listening will stick around for our Unplugged session that will be moderated by my colleague James Whirlwind Soldier. In our next slide here, we have resources that we put together for you to check out later. And then I'm going to quickly hand things over to my colleague in Northeast Minnesota, Shayla, for a quick overview of our September workforce session. Shayla.
Hi, so join us in September 7th from 11 to 12, same time, and followed by our Unplugged 12:30. We'll be talking about re-engaging the aging workforce post-pandemic. So that's another untapped talent pool. So we'll hear from a panel of experts and subject matter experts. So on recruitment, retention, and inclusion experts on re-engaging that population. So please join us, ready to share your own experiences and ideas. And I put the registration link in the chat.
Thank you, Shayla. And then now we will go ahead and close it out. I'll turn it over to my interim director, Jessica Miller, who will close us out before our Unplugged session.
Well, thank you everybody for joining us. That's pretty much a wrap. I don't really have a lot to say, but I would love if you stayed on and chatted with us in our Unplugged session, where we turn off the camera or turn off the recording, turn on the cameras, and then we can have a conversation together. So feel free to hang around.